God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week at number 13 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful but dark Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And if you can't tell, I'm fighting a bit of a cold today. So Mr. Hoyseth, as always, you're going to have to carry the show. Now, let me ask you this question. A couple weeks ago, a particular national television analyst slash reporter came out and said that at times throughout her career, she went ahead and faked interview responses from head coaches in the National Football League. A, did you hear about that? And B, can you believe she wasn't let go from her various jobs as a result?
Dave, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been removed from the real world here for most of the last 12, 13 weeks. I have not heard this story. What are you talking about?
So good old Carissa Thompson came out and said that early in her career, she, you know how like at halftime, they're supposed to interview coaches of football games. And she came out and said that she actually faked the interviews. So like, you know, when they throw it back to the reporter and the reporter says, the coach said the following things.
Yeah, she basically just made it up there.
So
congratulations to her. She predated AI, right? So she just kind of
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, I guess, because like the coaches all say the same thing anyways. But it was pretty amazing stuff.
That's amazing stuff. All right, I'm going to jump into pick number one here, Dave. I took the Dolphins at the Commanders, and the Dolphins are 9.5-point favorites. And I just kind of get this feeling, Dave, that this Washington team is about done. I don't know how many weeks Ron Rivera's got left. I know that the league loves him, and most people like Ron Rivera, but that team's not playing very well. And I just kind of feel like the Dolphins are ready to get on a run here towards the end of the season. They're still fairly healthy. I just don't see point for point anyways that the Commanders have a way of matching what the Dolphins can do offensively. It's 9.5. It's a big line, but I'm going to take the Dolphins. I just think they run away with this. It's a runaway freight train in this one.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you on a wide variety of stances there. My big question on the Commanders is, what's the team name going to be next year or the year after when they actually rename the team? Look, I love Ron Rivera. I think he's done, you know, a fantastic job. Sam Howell has no time in the world to pass the ball. And then on top of it, he's a lot like a lot of the young quarterbacks out there that struggles with his decision making in any sort of quick, timely fashion. I mean, Brad, if you're a quarterback in the National Football League today, you've got to get rid of the ball between 2 and 2.25 seconds. I mean, that's a lot of time. Like when you're in the drive-through, Brad, are you able to make your decisions that quickly about what you're going to be ordering, or do you sort of stall a little bit trying to make your decisions?
Yeah, I think, you know, this Dolphin team, I picked up, like I said, I picked up their defense a couple of weeks ago when I heard that, you know, Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard were coming back, and I think they're pretty healthy now defensively, and I get a sense that that defense is going to just get better as the season goes on.
Yeah.
And like you said, the Washington can't protect Howell, you know, and I just think it's going to be a long day for the Commanders.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the team that, if you asked me midway through last season, as well as during training camp this year, are the Colts a well-run organization? Brad, your response to that question would have been
no, they never have been.
And exactly. And yet, they canned Frank Reich last year. He gets hired immediately by the Carolina Panthers for some strange reason, and is gone as their head coach in Carolina. And yet this Indianapolis Colts team, whose starting quarterback is Gardner Minshew, and you've always loved the Gardner, is favored by 1 going into Tennessee this week. I don't know if this is a reflection of how bad Tennessee is or how bad Indianapolis is, but the Colts only favored by a point against the Tennessee Titans, who have done it. I mean, they've outdone themselves, Brad. They went out and they drafted a quarterback, which really can best be described as the second coming of their previous quarterback. Maybe just a younger version, if you will. So I don't know. I like the Gardner in this one. The Colts still have something to play for. It's only a point. I'm going to take the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there on that one. Like you said, they have something to play for. I don't know that Tennessee really does. I don't believe that teams really play for pride anymore at this time of the season in the NFL. I don't have a lot of faith in Tennessee. I just don't think they're a very good, talented roster from top to bottom. Minshew is an interesting player. I was talking to somebody earlier in the week, and they were talking about the situation in Minnesota with Josh Dobbs, and the rumors are starting to fly now that Dobbs is not going to be the starter, which I think is silly. Because I said, if Josh Dobbs suddenly hit the free agent market, I think there'd be a pretty good line waiting for him. And I kind of feel the same way about Minshew. I think Minshew's that kind of guy. I think he's one of the better, what you would consider backups, that's now been thrown to this starter role. I like what he can do. I don't have a lot of faith in Tennessee. I just don't think they have much to play for. I thought 1 was a really low line, which scares me a little bit, but I'm going to take the Colts.
Yeah. I agree with you on taking the Colts. On the Josh Dobbs front, I think that bubble it's like that Jay Schrader bubble, as it has been popped at this point. I think the Vikes are probably should look at playing one of their other quarterbacks, just because of the style of the offense. I've given up on Dobbs at this point. You can't throw 4 picks in a game and sort of look the way you look. Look, they're going to have a week off. Their next game is in Las Vegas against the Raiders. So there's some time for them to figure this out. But for the second time this year, the Minnesota Vikings set football back some 50 years with their offense.
Well, it was a very tough game to watch, obviously. But, Dave, you were sending me text messages during the game. And you were right. I don't know what happened to you since between then and now. But you said the kid is running for his life on every play.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only do so much. He hasn't had Jefferson out there. He's went 2-2, Dave, and he looked really good for 2 weeks. And, a couple of those picks on Monday night, they weren't his fault. They went off. How about catching the ball? How's that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He threw a great pass to Jordan Addison that was called incomplete in the first quarter. I mean, I just don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think the kid has got more talent than Nick Mullins. I think he's got more talent than the other kid, Hall. I think you have to at least give him a week with Jefferson. I think he's earned that right. And then if things, if it might not be the right offense for him, I agree with you on that part, But I don't think with the pressure he had on him last week, I don't think there's many quarterbacks in the league that would have had a very good week. I just don't.
My sister was texting me throughout the game about the national television curse of the Vikings, which proved to be true. I'll give you this, Brad. Go ahead, play Dobbs for the first half of that Raider game on the road. See what happens. I'll concede that.
I want to see a week with Justin Jefferson. The kid has played 4 games. He hasn't had the number one weapon in the offense. And, that's a big difference maker. When Justin Jefferson steps on that field, now suddenly Jordan Addison's got single coverage. And so Dobbs has got the arm strength. He clearly can run. A couple of the passes were not good. I get it. But when you have guys running at you consistently every single play, and you got to make a split-second decision. And by the way, he's had the playbook for 3.5 weeks. That's a big challenge to ask out of a kid.
I would say that Dobbs is one of those guys that can come in and be a change of pace quarterback and do something for you for a couple of weeks. I think what they found out in Arizona and what we're finding out with the Vikings is he's not nearly as good as a Gardner Minshew is from a long-term sort of backup quarterback perspective. So, good to come in for a couple games, Brad, as you pointed out, but as any kind of like long-term backup solution, I'm not loving it.
All right, I'm going to go to my second game. It's the Panthers at the Bucs. The Buccaneers are 5.5-point favorites. Dave, the Buccaneers are due. I mean, they've just been kind of, treading water now for a handful of weeks. They're getting a Panther team that's not very good. I'm seeing minor improvements out of the quarterback in Carolina, but it's just not quick enough for me. I get a feeling the Bucs going back home going to get healthy this week, and they're going to get a victory. I'm going to give the 5.5 and take the Bucs.
Yeah, this is an easy one. The question really is did Frank Reich ruin Bryce Young? I mean, like I feel this way about a lot of NFL quarterbacks, and that is they need to be in the right systems in order to be successful. And very few could be in the wrong system and sort of figure their way out of it. And so often I've sat down and seen bits and pieces of Bryce Young play, and I'm like, he just has no chance. I mean, it's just no chance. And it's like, who can you blame? You've got to blame the offensive coordinator and the head coach in this particular case, because they're not setting their guys up to be successful. And it's much the same way I felt about Josh Dobbs in the other game the other night on Monday Night Football. I didn't think Kevin O'Connell did him any justice in sort of setting him up to be successful at all, considering the pass rush he was dealing with. So, Baker Mayfield is exactly who Baker Mayfield is. That's not going to change. And there's a little bit of I told you I still had something left in the tank in this game for Mr. Mayfield. You can't forget that heading into this one. And is the Carolina Panther organization actually being run well, Brad?
It's been a while now. I mean, they haven't really been very competitive for a while. When it comes to Baker Mayfield, though, I've always thought that despite his, flaws, he's still a pretty fun guy to watch play the game. He just takes too many chances, and he's way too inconsistent. And, he gets hot at times, but then, he reminds you who he is the next throw,
All right, so we're going to move on to the next game, but I will say this. The Carolina Panthers organization, the only organization in the National Football League that went out, broke ground on a brand new practice facility, got about a quarter of the way through it, and then had some sort of dispute with the city and went ahead and stopped work on it. It's just sitting there. It's like the old Detroit Lions football stadium. It's just been abandoned. All right. Moving on. Broncos at the Texans. Texans are favored by 3.5. Love CJ Stroud. I've got to hand it to Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos for playing as well as they've been playing the last 5 weeks. Teams occasionally do actually get better throughout the season. It's not unheard of that it's exactly what we're seeing with the Denver Broncos at this point. Their defense is considerably better now than it was at the start of the season. And in terms of Russell Wilson, he hasn't been pedestrian, Brad. He's been slightly better than pedestrian so far this season. I just like this Texans team to have a little bit of magic. I think it's going to be at least 3.5 points worth of it. I think the Texans get back on the winning side of the fence this week. I like the Texans at home against Sean Payton.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other direction. I've seen some cracks in the armor a little bit the last few weeks, Dave.
Yeah. With
CJ Stroud, he's been a lot less than perfect the last few weeks. Denver's got the most turnovers in the league. Their defense. Now they give up a lot of points still. For some reason, those two things don't usually make sense put together. You're giving up a lot of points, but you create the most turnovers. But I think when you look at that point total for Denver, you can't help but think, what would happen if you take that one game away where they gave up 70, right? I mean,
yeah,
that was crazy. And I think you kind of have to at this point. That game was long in the rearview mirror at this point. Denver's playing great football. I mean, they're the hottest team right now in the AFC. You just got to wonder when it ends. I mean, remember we were saying the same thing a couple of weeks ago about the Vikings, and guys like you were all ready to put Josh Dobbs in the Hall of Fame, and then and now suddenly you're ready to bench him, right? So I'm not quite ready to put Denver to rest yet. I think 3.5. It feels like a field goal game to me. It feels like an Amendola last-second field goal, so I'm going to take the 3.5 and the Broncos.
All right, we got to be real about this. Hoysef's the guy that pinged me about Josh Dobbs' Christmas jerseys this year. But yeah, I get what you're saying about Denver, and I think this is definitely a game you could go either way with. And there have been definitely some kinks in the CJ Stroud armor over the past couple weeks for sure. So that's entirely accurate. This is more of a gut pick than anything else. You're right. I mean, Denver is playing. They're going to come in prepared, and Sean Payton. Look, Sean Payton as a head coach in the National Football League, I can't tell you how many years I saw him go like 1-4 with the New Orleans Saints and turn things around. He doesn't panic. He doesn't hit the red Staples button before he has to. So I could really see this going either way. But I think that the Texans are going to get back on track this week.
All right, my next game is the Falcons at the Jets. Speaking of teams that need to get back on track.
How is this game even allowed to go on?
The Jets, they came off the tracks about 5 weeks ago, but I'm not really playing the winner or loser on this one. I'm playing the over/under. It's just 34 points, Dave. I gotta believe somehow, some way, those two teams are going to cut. That's one of the lowest over/unders I've seen in a while, and so I'm going to take the over in that one. 34 just seems extremely low to me. I know that the Jets have been woeful offensively, but it's not like the Falcons are the 85 Bears or anything. I mean, they're not like a great defense. So, and their offense is kind of clicking right now. I mean, I could see Atlanta scoring, 27 on their own. So, I just don't think it's a big ask. I'm going to take the third. I'm going to take the over on that.
I was so tempted to just spite you and go with the under, but I'm sticking with the over. It was like, you're either in the National Football League or you're not. As a head coach or as a offensive coordinator, and this over under. Look, the Jets have a good defense. The Falcons have a decent defense. The Jets have some interesting key points, but you can sort of see where Vegas is coming at this from. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett really isn't a great offensive coordinator, is he? Unless Aaron Rodgers is playing. I think the highlight of this game is going to happen, during warmups when Aaron Rodgers goes out there and warms up. The biggest question is, will he actually be in a uniform and have spikes on when he does it? But I'm just going to agree with you on this. It's like somehow like the Jets defense is going to score 14 on their own.
Exactly.
I've got to believe that these two inept teams can figure out how to go over 34 points.
And here's the second question on that. Robert Saleh, is he in trouble, Dave?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I've watched the team there the last couple of weeks that it just seems like maybe he's lost the locker room. I don't know. It doesn't look good there.
Yeah, I think they had one of those players only meetings, Brad, and that's never a good thing for a head coach in the National Football League. I like Saleh a lot. His defense has been good enough. Their GM on paper has done a really good job. But ownership's is a little Spanos-ish. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, make the the big mistake here is Nathaniel Hackett as an offensive coordinator.
Dave, they spent a lot of money in free agency on an old man quarterback and an old man wide receiver.
Yep.
And 4 plays into the season, the quarterback was hurt.
Like, if you want to bring in Nathaniel Hackett as an assistant head coach or something like that, that's fine. But he shouldn't be the offensive coordinator at this team. There's no originality at all. I'm sorry, but Dalvin Cook hasn't suddenly gotten this bad overnight. He hasn't gone from 12 to 1,400, 1,500 all-purpose yards to like 100 overnight. That right there is a sign that the coaching staff has no idea how to use its weapons effectively, and you can't put this all on Zach as well. It's just, to me, this is another example of coaching gone wild.
In this case, I was watching part of that game last week, and I was going. I mean, that game rivaled the Vikings debacle. It really did. It was tough to watch that Jets game.
All right, so moving on to the most legitimate game of the National Football League this week, the San Francisco 49ers go into Philadelphia. The Niners are actually favored by 3. I think the updated line today had it at 2.5, but I didn't make the change, so we'll just leave it at 3. But Niners by 3 at Philadelphia. There was a interview with Kyle Shanahan earlier today, and Kyle Shanahan said, I don't know how I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, I don't know how they figure these things out in Las Vegas, but I'm surprised to hear we're favored. Yeah, I love that. It's just absolutely genius by Kyle Shanahan. Are you surprised they're favored in this game at all?
I'm absolutely surprised. I mean, Philadelphia's. I mean, they've kind of been. Philadelphia, I just kind of feel like it's been going through the motions for most of the season. I keep kind of waiting for them to put a game together where they look great because clearly they've got the talent to do so. The 49ers are, I could see them getting. I was a little surprised it was 3, frankly, that the Niners. I might flip on this one. I'm not quite sure, Dave. I mean, I got to tell you,
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Philadelphia has been really good at winning the close games. They haven't really blown too many teams out the way that the Cowboys have and the 49ers have this particular year. I was sleeping on the couch earlier in the day, and I had a particular Fox TV show on with a guy who goes by The Herd. And but his stats were really interesting, and he was talking about the Cowboys blowout wins and the 49ers blowout wins, and how the Eagles haven't blown anybody out. And then he pulled up a list of the past 6 Super Bowl winners, and he went down the list, and I was once again disturbed to see that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had won a Super Bowl over the last couple of years. I forgot that Tom Brady was there. This is going to get bitter every time I see that the Bucs won, not one, but let alone 2 Super Bowls before the Vikes have even had a chance in this modern era of the National Football League.
Josh Dobbs, Dave. Josh Dobbs.
I'm just saying that it just is amazing. So, and anyways, as I sort of look at this, I like the 49ers in this. But what the Colin Hurd was basically saying is, Super Bowl winning teams always end up beating the bad teams badly on a regular basis, and the Eagles just haven't done that yet so far this year. So that's his justification for liking the 49ers. I don't know about that, but I do like the 49ers on the road. I think that Brock Purdy is playing, well enough. If this is a sign of anything, I think this 49er team would love to have on their resume that they took down the Cowboys and destroyed the Eagles in Philadelphia.
I think 2 things are going to happen here, Dave. Number one, I'm going to flip and I'm going to take the Eagles because I think it's ridiculous the Niners are a 3-point favorite on the road in Philadelphia. But I do believe the Niners are going to be the first team to stop the push or whatever the hell it's called. Dave, I keep watching this thing every single week.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia gets up there, and it's basically a rugby play for them. You know? And I'm so sick and tired of seeing the defenses line up, and then the guys in the back row try to jump over. They've lost all their leverage. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's like they need a scientist to come in there and say, no, you have to push your guys from behind just like they are and play rugby for a play. But you see it every single week, and you go, why are you jumping over the top of the pile? You just lost every bit of leverage you had by doing that. I don't get it. But I think the 49ers will be the first team to stop it. That's my prediction.
I think I don't know if they're going to stop it. I'm not sure that
Fred Warner.
It can be stopped, but you're absolutely right about your assessment of the right way and the wrong way to play that particular play. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It blows me away when defenses know that they're going for a quarterback sneak, and they end up basically playing a 3-4 defense. I mean, like, this just blows me away, Brad. I mean, that's even more idiotic than somebody going over the top in one of those in one of those plays.
All right, Dave, I'm going to move on to my 4th game. It's the Cardinals at the Steelers. The Steelers are 5.5-point favorites. Dave, the Steelers don't beat anybody by 5.5. I think they'll win again. They'll just got to be Dave. Mike Tomlin could be the coach of the year. I mean, really. I mean, when you look, that defense is so average, and yet they somehow continuously get turnovers. They give up a ton of yards between the 20s, and then suddenly they get a turnover, and they're good at it. I mean, they're just flat out good at it. And now they're a better team than the Cardinals, and I don't have a lot of faith in what's going on in Arizona. I just thought 5.5 was a big number because the Steelers just don't score a lot of points. Offensively, they're not great. They score more with their defense, it seems like.
Yeah. This is a great opportunity for the Cardinals to sort of come in with Kyler and run around and put up some points. And I mean, you absolutely excuse me, could be right here. I don't know. I don't know about Tomlin being the coach of the year either. As much as I love Mike Tomlin, I'm not necessarily.
Who does that offense have? Really, I mean, is there anybody there really that's great? I mean, is George Pickens a great wide receiver? I don't know. I mean, in recent weeks, Najee Harris has looked a little bit better. There's really not anything. Freiermuth is a mediocre tight end. There's just not a lot there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, as the head chef of the restaurant, aren't you ultimately responsible for what's on the menu? I mean, like, doesn't Tomlin need to go into his GM and ask for some different ingredients every once in a while? So look, they are who they are. I mean, their running game certainly looked great during the preseason, didn't it? So I don't know. The Steeler defense is great at turnovers. The rest of the time they're mediocre. Definitely concerned about Kyler. I could see how you'd take the Cardinals in this one. But we're sort of getting into the backside of the season now, and these are the games that the Steelers win. And somehow I think they're going to end up winning by more than 5.5 points. I like the Steelers in this one.
Dave, the Steelers are 7-4. Okay.
Yeah.
They've been outscored by their opponents by 23 points for the year. Okay. They've only scored 182 points all year. I mean, that's not very good. The team in front of them, the Ravens, by the way, scored 324, 142 more points. Offensively, this is not a good football team. And 5.5 points is a lot for this team.
Yeah.
Right? Dave, they're only averaging somewhere around 18 a game.
I think TJ is gonna have a touchdown. That's where I'm going with this one. All right, moving on to a game I can't believe I picked. The Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags favored by 8.5 points. Oh my God, this is a huge line for a team that hasn't really clicked on all cylinders consistently. I do like the Jags in this one. I hate that it's 8.5, but I'm still going to go ahead and throw it down. I just don't know what Cincinnati is going to do without Joe Burrow as its starting quarterback. And I think, the Bengals are, sort of a below 500 team without Burrow. And I think Jacksonville is playing a little bit better the last couple weeks. I had to pick up Trevor Lawrence on my fantasy football team, Brad. I benched Sam Howell. That's how bad my fantasy football team is. But Trevor performed. I like the Jags in this one, and I'm going to give up the 8.5.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the year, I think the Jags were one of the teams I picked to go deep into the playoffs, if I recall. I mean, I remember saying that the Jags could be the team, and then all of a sudden they got out of the gate really slowly this year, and they didn't play very well. But it seems like they've kind of found their stride a little bit. And, Browning and the Bengals, I don't know, they've had a really disappointing year. They really don't have much to play for. And so I think it's a big line, 8.5. I was, really cautious about taking them, but I'm with you. I'm going to take the Jags. I just kind of feel like they're on a roll. They're the team that's kind of on a roll that nobody's talking about right now.
Yeah.
Because everybody's looking at the Broncos, and previously they were looking at the Vikings and all these kinds of things. And suddenly the Jags are playing pretty good football. So I'm with you. I think they're a better young team. ATN's become a real back. They're starting to find Calvin Ridley a lot. And so I think they just have a lot more talent. I'm going to take the Jags and give that 8.5 reluctantly.
Yeah, it's a big spread, but I mean, this is basically the end of the season for Cincinnati. And I don't believe their head coach can do this without Joe Burrow. I think he's Joe Burrow reliant. He's not the kind of guy that if they had Gardner Minshew, would keep on winning with him. But if Gardner Minshew were on that team, they'd have a significantly better chance. because he's that good of a backup quarterback.
All right, my final game, Dave, is the Chiefs at the Packers. Packers, I don't really know what to think of them. I was ready to bury Jordan Love a few weeks ago, and he suddenly has looked okay the last few weeks. But I just feel like the Chiefs, at some point, they've got to wake up. They just haven't played great football really all year long, and they haven't really found an answer at wide receiver, and they've been relying on Travis Kelce. And here, one thing I noticed, Dave, is you remember last year with the Chiefs how much they used Jerick McKinnon, and I saw where Jerick McKinnon's only got like 15 catches the entire season or something. I just feel like they've been hiding him in their back pocket, and that at some point they're going to all of a sudden throw it back out there and say, "Hey, remember this guy?" Right? And because he was such a vital, critical role for them down the stretch last year. I mean, he was a great player, and he was scoring every week, and he was catching 7 or 8 balls every single game. And then all of a sudden you wake up now and he's got like 12 or 14 catches, and we're in week 13. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so I just get a sense that Kansas City's they're ready to start playing better football. The playoff season is coming around. We're getting towards the holidays. I didn't really like the line that much of 6.5, but I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to give that 6.5.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. Yeah, Jordan Love's looked good enough. He's looked good enough for the organization to stick with him, which could be a good thing if you're in the NFC North. Sort of hard to tell with Jordan Love, huh? I mean, a bit of an enigma right now. He's sort of he makes some good decisions. He looks really good at times.
I absolutely despise his wide receivers, by the way. I mean, I think Christian Watson's got world of talent, and I think the other kid on the other side's got worlds of talent. The problem with them, Dave, is it's a critical problem with the wide receiver when you can't catch. Okay, you have to be able to catch. Yeah. That's a problem.
There's the catching, and then Watson runs one good pattern, and that's it.
He's good at it.
He is good at it.
But neither him or Dobbs can catch.
It's like Deshaun Jackson, was one trick pony. But I don't know, like the Chiefs are. Not the same team they were last year. I think that's apparent. I don't feel like they're the best team in the National Football League so far this season. I think we all expect them to turn things on as the season goes on. I mean, they're certainly susceptible to a trip up here. And I could definitely see that happening. I just don't have that kind of faith in the Packers and Jordan Love at this point. So I'm going to agree with you and take the Chiefs.
I was watching that game last week, the Bills game. And, the Bills have been just kind of a mainstay in the playoffs the last few years. Dave, are they relegated now to trying to play a spoiler role? I mean, they're 6-6. Is it over?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a huge upside, I mean, at least in Cincinnati, Burrow's out. I think there'll be a coaching change in Buffalo, at the end of the season.
Here's the wacky part, Dave. The Bills have outscored their opponents by 100 points. And they're playing 500 football. The Steelers, on the other hand, have been outscored by nearly 25, and they're 7-4. So it's just kind of a wacky year that way.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that. You can blow some teams out and then lose close ones is what that comes down to. Okay, so for our final game of the week. Lions at the New Orleans Saints. Lions favored by 4. I don't know. Really, I'm going to take the Lions in this one just because I believe they're a team that is is going to win the NFC North this year, and this is the kind of game that they should win if they're going to pull that off. I sat through the Bye Bye Barry documentary on Prime the other day, and I couldn't help but think, how much suffering the Detroit Lions organization has had throughout its lifetime, and Dan Campbell has certainly, as they like to say in Detroit, at least once every 25 years, he's restored the roar. So I like the Lions on the road. It just I don't want to say the Lions are a team of destiny. They're a team of destiny to win the division. I like the Lions in this one on the road.
I don't know, I've seen a lot of very mediocre football out of the Lions the last couple of weeks, Dave. Thanksgiving was not a good day for them, getting beat by the Packers by 7. I still think they win this game, but I'm going to take the Saints. I love the points. You're going to give me 4 at home. The Saints can play some defense now. They're not a great football team offensively.
Yeah.
But I just thought 4 was, if it was 2, maybe I lean towards the Lions, but 4, I'm going to take the Saints at home. It just feels like a last-second field goal to me.
Yeah, such a rebel is that Brad Hoysef going with the Saints at home in this one. Look, this Lions team is playing pretty well. I expect that the good Detroit Lions team is going to show up in this one, and I'm not even sure who's going to be the starting quarterback, Brad, for New Orleans. Is it your guy Derek Carr?
They haven't had a good starting quarterback, Dave, since Drew Brees left, so I don't think it really matters. They play defense. Yeah. I'm not taking them because of their quarterback. And by the way, the quarterback on the other side has looked a lot like Jared Goff in recent weeks. A lot like Jared Goff, right?
That's because, of course,
you're putting Jared Goff on a big pedestal there, Dave.
It is Jared Goff, yeah. Absolutely love it. All right, there you go. It is our top 10 games for week number 13 of your National Football League. Worth actually spending some money on. Mr. Hoysef, any parting thoughts before we get out of here?
My message to Kevin O'Connell: don't flinch. Play Josh Dobbs next week when you're in Oakland or when you're in Las Vegas. Okay, let him have his time with Jefferson, and if it fails, then it fails. But yeah, I don't see the other options are any better.
Yeah. All right. We'll make sure Kevin O'Connell gets your message, Brad. We'll go out of our way. Look, it's going to be a really interesting weekend. A lot of dog football games, quite frankly, over the weekend that are going to be difficult to watch. I mean, I challenge any of you out there to sit through the entirety of the Falcons-Jets game. If you can pull that off, we'll give you a gift card to Carl's Jr. I mean, that is just absolutely going to be difficult to sit through. But looking forward to that 49ers-Eagles game, which
that could be the game of the year, really.
Yeah, which is really one of the best games of the season so far. All right, let's see, that is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBow up in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.